Hello everyone, this is Satyaprakash. In this session we'll learn about the role and importance of identity column in SQL Server. So in this session we'll learn the few details. What is identity column in SQL Server? Why we use identity column in SQL Server? Steps to add identity column in SQL Server. Provide the explicit value for identity column in SQL Server. Role of DBCC CHECKIDENT command and steps to reset values for identity column in SQL Server. So before visit my this session, visit my last video session that is regarding on, and this session was on the identity column in SQL Server, and this was correlated with each other, and few examples and stable structures are we described, that is we same stable structures we are described here. So visit this last session on video session, and you can get this link in the description section. Okay, so identity column. What is identity column in SQL Server? So if a column is specified as an identity column, then the values for this column are automatically provided during the insert a row into the table. For example, if a table name is TBL person and the person ID is you have mentioned the identity column. So if you insert the records during the into the TBL person table, so no need to manually put the value of person ID column. It is automatically inserted by the SQL Server. So the identity column value is automatically calculated and provided by the SQL Server. There are two values for identity specifications. That is, one is identity seed and another one is identity increment. And seed and increment values are optional. So I'll show you with the graphically. Okay, second thing is what is identity insert underscore insert and DBCC CHECKIDENT and truncate. To explicitly supply a value for identity column, first turn on the identity insert, set identity underscore insert TBL person on. If you put it on, then you can explicitly supply a value for identity column. If you want SQL Server to supply the value, then turn off the identity underscore inserts. So command is set identity underscore insert TBL person off. At the time if you do this, then SQL Server will supply for the value for you to the identity column. No need to supply value manually for the identity column. So DBCC CHECKIDENT and truncate command will reset the identity column. For example, if you delete all the records and if you refresh again and put some new records, then what you will get that during the insert of record, the last identity value of the column will be shown. If, for example, if already have inserted 6 records and the identity column of ID is 6 last time and you deleted, and if you again reinsert the new records from the refresh, then the 7 will be shown because it does not reset the identity column. So DBCC CHECKIDENT and truncate command will reset the identity column. I will show all these things with examples as well as SQL query in details. So what is the role of identity column in SQL Server? So the most important and point and mentioned below, in real-time scenario, what we did, the primary key or ID column should be auto increment value, and we can achieve this using identity column in SQL Server. For example, if we have a student or candidate registration form, and for each student ID and candidate ID there is a many columns. That is when there is a primary things column should be mentioned on the ID. So the student ID and candidate ID, we need to specify identity column for student ID and candidate ID. So the values insert to the student ID and candidate ID will be inserted by the SQL Server automatically. So no need to specify the manually value. This is auto increment. So what we have already described in that is theoretically. I'll show you with details with few examples. So let's flip to SQL Server. Okay, so there is a few points I have mentioned here. So first is primary key column without auto increment. So in my previous table, that is the TBL person is the primary key. You see here, so TBL person is the ID column is the primary key column is ID is not auto increment, so that we push the value manually for ID column, but in a real time scenario it should not actually, this column should be auto increment value. So we can achieve this using identity column in SQL Server. For example, we have a registration form I already have described in the sheet, or candidate registration form, and for each student ID and candidate ID we need to specify identity column for student ID as well as candidate ID. Okay, next one is identity specification of new table. I already have created a new table here, so I'll using the script type. Okay, now I will design part. So I have created one new table, that is TBL person identity, and I added 3 columns: person ID, name, city, and put the primary key column on the person ID. So TBL person identity table using graphically, I'll tell you about the identity increment and identity seed. So if you expand this, you'll see here one option is the identity column. So I have put here, sorry, identity specifications, yes. So here is this yes or no option. I put yes, and by default identity increment 1 and identity seed is 1. So identity seed means where to start, and identity increment means how much you want to increment every time. So seed and increment values are optional. In real time scenario, these two option values should be identity increment equal to 1 and identity seed equal to 1. But if you want to customize, you can do it. If you want to, that is, set the identity increment equal to 5, here if you want to set as 1000, then you can do it. But actually in a real time scenario, the actual process is it should not be, and by default identity increment and identity set is set to 1, 1. Okay, now graphically how to add the identity column to the identity column to the specific person ID, I already have shown you, and I'll tell you how to it will be shown when you generate the script of this table. So if you generate the script of this table here, so generate a create script of TBL person identity to check the identity column specifications. Okay, now you'll see here what I did in the graphically, the same thing we have generated using a script. So TBL person create table, three columns, that is person ID, name, and city, and put the identity here. It is nothing but the identity increment, it is identity seed and not null, and the constraint I have, it is added here, and person ID here, there is a primary key column here, and it is auto increment. I have what you did in graphically, it is, so it is generated by script automatically. Okay, now I'll show you another thing, that is, if you right click the person ID column here, so we already have generated the create script of TBL person identity to check the identity column specifications. Now I want to show another thing, is right click on the person ID column here and go to the properties to check identity column specifications. See here, identity is true, identity set is 1, identity increment is 1. Okay, now you already have got the idea about how to add the identity column in table, and how to check using graphically as well as using a script of this identity column information of specific table. Okay, now okay, now part 3 is let's check using the table person identity. So select star from table person identity. So if you okay, now there is no records at all. So if you mark a column as an identity column, you don't have explicitly supply a value for that column. Now when you insert a new row, so the value is automatically calculated and provided by the SQL Server. So we discuss about this person ID. This person ID value will be automatically inserted by the SQL Server. Okay. So I will insert few records here. So insert into and table person identity, and the values I have mentioned here, that is SATYA1 Satya1 and Bengaluru 1. I want to insert 3 records, so 2 3. Here I modified to 2, Bengaluru 1 2, Bengaluru 2, Satya 1 2, Satya 3, Bengaluru 1 2, Bengaluru 3. I want to insert 3 records, so I'll show you how to see here. During the insert in the table, I have not mentioned the ID value, person ID value here, because it will be automatically inserted by the SQL Server, so no need to specify this value because it is identity column. So 3 rows are affected. If you check here, see here the person ID is 1 2 and 3, so it is a auto increment of the person ID column. So point 4 is, for example, I delete one record from this table, and to check whether the person ID value 1 is reusable or not. So I'll tell you, I want to delete one record here, that is table person identity, where person ID equal to 1. Okay, now one row is affected. We'll see here it is 2 and 3 because ID 1 is deleted. So this person ID 1 I have deleted, and if you next time insert a new record, so person ID 1, this value of person ID will be 1 or it will be other value, it will be inserted. I will show you here. So insert into table person identity values. So Satya 4, Bengaluru 4. If you insert this record, the value, what should be the value? It's the person ID value should be 1 or the person ID value should be 4. Let's see. See here, the next value of person ID was 4. So it should not allow the value of person ID 1 what I deleted earlier. So how to do this? So here the person ID value 1 is not reusable. Okay, now next time whatever records will be inserted, it will increment by 1 1 1 5 6 7 8 9 10. But I want to reuse this ID of 1. So the next point is, for example, I need to pass person ID value 1 explicitly. So let's what happens. Okay, I want to insert the value of person ID, that is implicitly. Values, I want to implement the value of person ID 1. Implicitly I pass Bengaluru 5. Here, sorry, I mention here the name Satya 5 here, and here the city name I want to mention here Bengaluru 5. So if you insert this, you'll get a error, that is an explicit value for identity column in table person identity can only be specified when a column list is used and identity insert is on. So if you want to explicitly insert a value for identity column, you need to set identity underscore insert is on. Okay, so it throws an error that explicit value for the identity column on certain conditions. So next one is, so I need to make changes here to pass explicit value for identity column in a table. So what we will do here? So I just drag to down for better look. Set. Okay, now what we will do here, and I need to make some changes here to pass explicit value for identity column in a table, so without any issue or without any error. So set identity, I just copy here, set identity underscore insert table TBL person identity on, and next one is I want to insert these records, right? So I have specified this statement here, and I have to insert these records because I want to supply the value of 1 explicitly. So let's what happens here. First I execute this statement here. It is successfully. I want to insert these records for explicit value. An explicit value for identity column can only be specified when a column is specified TBL person identity equal to 1. Okay, now I'll check here what here. Set under identity underscore insert. Maybe the statement is not correct. Execute this. So set identity underscore insert table person equal to okay. Now what we will do here, you need to we must mention the column names here, otherwise it will not accept the value. So we need to add the person ID, okay, name here and city, otherwise it throws an error. I need to insert here explicit value. So one row is affected. If you see here, The person ID 1 is inserted successfully, you can see here. So explicit value can be inserted using identity underscore insert set on. So we must mention the column names here. What are the columns inside this table person identity table? So next point is, if I want to remove person ID column name and its value for making it auto increment, and remember the identity underscore insert of table person identity is on. So as long as the identity underscore insert is turned on for a table, you need to explicitly provide the value for that column. If you don't provide the value, you get an error. So what we'll do here, I want to remove person ID column name and its value for making it auto increment, and you should remember that identity underscore insert is on. So I'll copy here. I want to remove this one, values. I will remove this one, put 6 here, Bengaluru 6 here. I want to insert, see here, this throws an error. Explicit value must be specified for identity column in table person identity. Either when the identity underscore is set to on, when a replication user is inserting into a not for replication identity column. It's because it throws an error because this is identity underscore insert of table person identity is on. That's why you get the error. You cannot allow the SQL Server to insert the value of identity column automatically. It throws an error only because the identity underscore insert of table person is on. So next one is, if you don't want to supply value explicitly for identity column of table person identity, then we must make identity underscore insert of table person identity is off. So we need to set off this identity underscore insert table person identity. So if you want to set off and insert the records again, so okay, if you don't want to supply the value explicitly for identity column of table person identity, so we must make the identity underscore insert of table person identity is set off. So I have mentioned the statement here, set identity underscore insert table person identity off, and I have mentioned the insert statement here. I have not mentioned the person ID manually here, so I need to execute this. So if you wish SQL Server to calculate the value, turn off the identity underscore insert. So I have turned off the identity underscore insert of table person identity is off. If you want SQL Server to calculate the value of person ID, instead you want to pass the values manually for person ID column. So I have execute this and insert here. One row is affected. If you check here, see here, the person ID automatically incremented to 5, Satya 6 and Bengaluru 6. So in this way you can allow SQL Server to insert the value of identity column explicitly or implicitly using this statement, that is set underscore. If you want to pass the values manually, then set identity underscore insert table person ID set on, and you need to specify the column names of tables and with values, explicit value for identity column. If you don't want to provide the explicit value for identity column, you wish SQL Server to calculate the value of identity column, then turn off the identity underscore insert, and insert statement should be shown like this. Okay, now if you check here, you already have inserted the Satya 6 and Bengaluru 6. So next one is, I delete all the records from the table and want to reset values of identity column of that table. Okay, now I delete all the records from table person identity, and after delete all the records from this table, if you again reinsert the fresh values, so this value should be 6 or this value will start from person ID 1. Let's see. So I delete all the records here, 5 rows is deleted, and I'll just copy here, so no records is there. Okay, so I insert the one new record here. So what should be the person ID identity column? I want to insert 1, I want to insert here 1, insert this. What will the person ID value? See here, it started from 6 because last identity column was 5. So what I deleted all these things, and it, when you start reinsert refresh data to the same table, the person ID identity column is started from 6 value. So how to reset? Here the value of identity column person ID is not reset. It shows next identity column of last person ID identity column value. So next one is, so it can be possible to reset values of identity column of that table using DBCC CHECKIDENT command after delete all the records. So it is possible to reset the identity column using DBCC CHECKIDENT. So let's see how to do it. So I just delete this one again, and see here, no values there. I have mentioned the DBCC CHECKIDENT TBL person. Here the mention the TBL person identity table, reset 0. You can check current identity value here. So if you execute this, it will show here that is checking identity information, that is current identity value was 6. So last time what value I have inserted, that value was 6 here. So DBCC execution is completed. If any error, then contact to system administrator. So it's successfully executed. If you again reset here, again check here, see it reset the value, checking identity information, that is current identity column value is 0 now. So our identity column value is 0 now. DBCC execution is completed. So the command, you can check the current identity value, and this command will reset person ID identity column. So again I want to insert again, one row is affected. If you check here, select, see here, it's successfully done. So in this way we can reset the identity column of the table. So person ID is 1, Satya 1, Bengaluru 1, and before using this DBCC check identity command, the value was 6, remember, and now after using this command, the value is automatically reset, that is person ID 1, and successfully executed. Okay, so next one is it can be done also reset the value of identity column of that table by using truncate command after delete all the records. So like DBCC check identity command, do it using the truncate command also. Okay, now check here. If I delete here and insert there here, no record there. If I insert again and check again, see here it shows the 2 because last time it was 1, and after the executing this dbc check ident command, but now I have not used this command to reset the identity column. I want to just truncate table name. If you execute this command completed successfully, no records there. If you insert again, so one row is affected. If you select query here, see here the person ID identity column was reset and it started from 1. So in 2 ways you can reset the value using DBCC check identity command, or you can use this truncate command. So truncate, this is clear all previous records. So this command will reset person ID identity column, and I have executed this query and this has been inserted successfully. And if you execute this select statement here, you'll check here the ID column is reset. Identity column of person ID is reset to 1. So there is 2 ways, that is one is using DBC check ident, another one is a truncate statement to reset the identity column of a table. So I have described all the total 11 points, basically all based on all scenarios of identity column and its implementation, and using theoretically as well as as well as practically using few SQL query as well as with its descriptions. So flip to my sheet here. So this one is my, if you want to report this what is identity column in SQL Server, you can read here, that is identity column, what is identity column and what are the values, how many values there, and CD and increment values are optional, and what is identity underscore insert, DBC check ident, and what is truncate. Next one is what the role and responsibility of identity column in SQL Server, what we want to implement identity column in our real-time scenario. There is the biggest important reason behind it, and you can get the interview related questions based on it. So this is my YouTube channel, Coding Knowledge. Subscribe it, share it with your colleagues, friends and close pioneers, and you can get all the details on .NET Core, SQL Server, Angular and Azure Data Factory, Azure, and all this AWS related stuff, and I can get the all sessions regarding this. So subscribe it. Okay, lastly in summary part what we have learned in this session. In this session we have learned that is what is identity column, why we use the identity column in SQL Server, what is the roles behind it, what the reason behind it we should use this identity column in SQL Server, why we use this identity column, and what are the steps to add identity column in SQL Server graphically or as well as using script. I already have shown you earlier, and how to provide the explicit value for identity column in SQL Server in one way, that is you should set the identity underscore insert set on. If you use to SQL Server to provide value for the identity column, you want to set the identity underscore insert set is off. So why you use of DBC check ident command, what the roles of DBCC CheckIdent command, and because to reset the values of identity column in SQL Server, and steps to reset values of for identity column in SQL Server in two ways, using DBCC CheckIdent command, and second type is using truncate command. In these two ways, you can reset the step you can reset the values of identity column in SQL Server. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening and have a great day. Thank you very much.